Dillon Gabriel's up-and-down outings have exposed more than just his limitations. They've revealed a coaching staff while Shedeur shows flashes of brilliance in limited snaps. Stefanski still opts for safer, less promising choices week after week. And now, with the Browns on the brink of slipping out of postseason relevance, the missed opportunity is glaring. Every week Sanders doesn't start is a week wasted, and it's becoming impossible to ignore the cost of that indecision.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
There's no future in hesitation. While Joe Flacco and Bailey Zappi fill space on the depth chart, Sanders represents the one real shot the team has at building around a modern, dynamic quarterback. But that means Stefanski has to let go of fear of ego and of the need to play it safe. The clock is ticking, and unless the Browns choose vision over comfort, they're not just risking the season, they're risking the future. When Stephen A. Smith told the world that Shedeur Sanders should be the Browns' starting quarterback for the rest of the season, he didn't just rattle off another headline-making hot take. He put Kevin Stefanski on the spot in front of the entire league. And if you listen closely, you can hear the echo of that statement ricocheting through Cleveland's locker room, media, and fan base. Why isn't Sanders starting? The real heat here isn't just about a quarterback controversy. It's about the mounting frustration with a coaching staff that continues to resist the one move that almost everyone agrees would actually make sense. Shedeur Sanders, a young and talented quarterback with clear flashes of leadership and ability, continues to be held back in favor of less consistent, less promising options. And it's not just confusing anymore. It's becoming indefensible. Throughout the season, Sanders has been sidelined in favor of Dillon Gabriel, whose performances have ranged from shaky to straight-up problematic. He's had chances. He's had starts. But the inconsistency has been glaring, and the offense has reflected it. The passing game has lacked rhythm. The red zone efficiency has cratered. The turnovers haven't stopped. And the leadership? It's been missing under center. So, why isn't Stefanski making the move? That's the question that fans, analysts, and even players have likely been asking behind closed doors. Because on paper and on film, Sanders has shown what you want to see in a young quarterback. He's poised in the pocket. He's shown glimpses of being able to read defenses. He's made throws under pressure that some of these safer quarterbacks couldn't hit in warm-ups. Yes, there are issues, holding the ball too long, missing a read here and there, but that's normal. That's expected. And more importantly, those things are fixable, but only if you actually let him play. That's where frustration boils over, because this isn't just about talent. It's about development. It's about trust. It's about vision. And right now, Kevin Stefanski is making it clear that he either doesn't have that vision, or he doesn't trust Sanders enough to take the risk. Either way, it's not a good look, especially for a team like Cleveland, which is sitting in a weird middle ground. Too talented to tank, but too unstable to win consistently. And when you're stuck in that space, the one thing you must do is develop your future. That's what keeps your window open. That's what builds a real team identity. That's what gets a fan base to actually believe again. And that's what Stefanski is refusing to do. Instead, he's playing a conservative game of quarterback shuffle, leaning on veterans like Joe Flacco or backups like Bailey Zappi, names that, frankly, should not be part of any long-term conversation. And yet, week after week, it's Sanders who gets the short end of the stick. Limited snaps, few reps, no consistent game time. Just enough to keep the chatter going, but never enough to actually give him a chance to grow. And growth is the entire point here. The only way to truly evaluate a quarterback, especially one with long-term potential, is to give him meaningful playing time. Real reps, real responsibilities. You don't know what a guy can be if you never let him be it. But for some reason, Stefanski seems paralyzed by the idea of giving Sanders that runway. And that's where ego enters the picture. Critics have pointed out something that's getting harder to ignore. Stefanski's approach feels less about strategy and more about control, about protecting himself, about not rocking the boat with bold moves that could backfire. It's a risk-averse mindset, where familiar faces and game-to-game patch jobs take precedence over real development. But in trying to avoid risk, he's making the team worse. This kind of cautious, Coaching might feel safe in the short term, but it's a slow bleed in the long term. You're not solving the quarterback problem. You're kicking it down the road. You're robbing Sanders of the opportunity to learn through experience. You're signaling to the rest of the locker room that safe mediocrity is more valuable than taking a chance on talent. And players see that. They feel that. When a locker room watches a young player show flashes in practice, flashes in limited snaps, flashes of actual leadership, and still sees him passed over, it sends a message. And it's not a good one. It breeds doubt. Doubt in the system. Doubt in the staff. Doubt in the direction of the team. It's not just the quarterback position that suffers. It's the whole roster. Morale takes a hit. Chemistry becomes harder to maintain. And players start questioning if the coaching staff really wants to win or just wants to be right. That's why Stephen A.'s comment struck a nerve. Because he wasn't just making noise. He was saying what so many people were already thinking. That Shedeur Sanders is being mishandled. That the Browns are actively harming their future by sitting on their most promising piece. That the reluctance to commit to Sanders is less about him and more about a coach unwilling to admit that his current plan just isn't working. And the evidence is stacking up. The Browns aren't getting better. The offense isn't evolving. The quarterback play is stagnant. And the revolving door of subpar performances continues to spin. So again, what's the harm in letting Sanders finish the season? Worst case, he struggles. You learn. You build. You go into the offseason with clarity. Best case, he takes off. He finds his rhythm. He shows he is the guy. And suddenly, the Browns aren't stuck in quarterback limbo anymore. They've got their franchise piece, and everything else can start to fall into place. But that only happens if Stefanski gets out of his own way. The truth is, coaching in the NFL isn't just about X's and O's. It's about leadership. And part of leadership is knowing when to let go of ego and trust your team. Part of leadership is knowing when to stop playing defense with your decisions and start building something. That time is now. There's no more benefit to hesitation. No upside to sticking with a rotation that's already proven ineffective. No value in sidelining a player who could very well be the spark this team needs. Because at this point, every week Sanders doesn't start is another week wasted. If the Browns truly want to turn the corner, not just for this season, but for their future, then they have to commit. Fully. No more excuses. No more hedging. Let Shedeur Sanders start. Let him lead. Let the team rally around him. Because the Browns don't need another quarterback experiment. They need a direction, a philosophy, a reason to believe that this rebuild won't end up like all the others, wasted, aimless, and incomplete. And right now, Sanders is the only option on that roster who offers hope. Not hope for one game or one drive, but hope for a new era, an identity, a future worth building toward. So what's it going to be, Cleveland? Stay in this endless loop of indecision, or finally take the leap? If you're ready to see this team stop playing scared and finally commit to the future, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who's just as tired of watching potential waste away. Drop a comment. Do you believe Shedeur Sanders should start the rest of the season? And if you want more breakdowns like this, make sure you're subscribed. Because if the Browns don't make the move soon, you already know we'll be right back here watching the same mess unravel. Again. At this point, we've talked about the obvious, the talent, the upside, the missed opportunity. But here's where it gets even harder to ignore. Kevin Stefanski's handling of the quarterback room isn't just a mistake. It's starting to feel like sabotage. Not intentional, not malicious, but sabotage all the same. The kind of slow, stubborn, ego-driven spiral that pulls down a team from the inside out. Because when you have this many signs pointing in one direction, and you still refuse to make the move, it's not indecision anymore. It's a conscious choice. And that choice is costing the Browns everything. It's costing them offensive identity, leadership, locker room confidence, fan trust, and most critically, it's costing them time. Time they do not have. The NFL does not wait for coaches to figure out in year 6. Teams don't sit around while potential franchise quarterbacks get buried under rotation of one-year fill-ins. You either develop your future, or you get passed up by teams who, right now, They're letting it slip through their hands. Think about it. When has this team ever had the chance to mold a quarterback from the ground up, to grow him inside a system, to shape the offense around his strengths, and to build a foundation that doesn't rely on Band-Aid fixes and late-career veterans? Shedeur Sanders is that chance. He's not a fluke. He's not just hype. He's shown, in the limited time he's been given, that he belongs on the field. Not every throw has been perfect, but the composure, the footwork, the way he handles pressure, it's real. And it's enough to earn a longer look, especially when the guys ahead of him have done nothing to justify their spot. Let's stop dancing around it. Dillon Gabriel has not played well. He's been given opportunities. He's started games. He's had real game plans built around him. And the results have been flat, inconsistent, and downright frustrating. This is not a quarterback trending toward long-term success. This is a quarterback who is still struggling to read basic defensive disguises while the offense sputters and stalls. And what's even worse, Stefanski knows it. You can see it in his post-game comments. The way he hedges. The way he talks around the issue. The constant mention of rotations, packages, and finding the hot hand. That's not coaching confidence. That's coaching deflection. He knows the current plan isn't working. He's just not ready to change it. And for what? To protect his own decision-making? To avoid admitting that the safer choice was actually the wrong one? That's not leadership. That's damage control. And damage control is not going to save this season or Stefanski's credibility. Because the longer he clings to this strategy, the worse it gets. Every game without Shedeur starting becomes a game fans mentally check out of. Every press conference that doesn't acknowledge the obvious becomes harder to take seriously. And every bad drive, every turnover, every 3-and-out from the current starters becomes a louder chant for change. It's not just sports talk fodder anymore. It's a movement. The Browns are one of the most passionate, loyal, resilient fan bases in the league. These are people who have endured decades of disappointment, who have stuck by the franchise through coaching changes, quarterback busts, and organizational chaos. And now, when they finally have a promising young QB sitting right there, they're being asked to wait? Again? No, that window is closed. This isn't about patience. This is about progress. And you cannot make progress if the person steering the ship is afraid to take their hands off the emergency brake. The Browns aren't rebuilding. They're supposed to be contending. This team wasn't built to go 6-11 while waiting to see if a rotational starter gets hot. This roster has pieces, on both sides of ball, that deserve a leader under center who isn't just trying to hold the offense together with duct tape. They deserve a quarterback with vision, with leadership, with growth potential. Shedeur Sanders is that quarterback. He's not a guaranteed star. No one is. But he's shown more in limited snaps than some of these other guys have shown all year. And yet, Stefanski still won't make the leap. Maybe it's stubbornness. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's the classic coaching fear of trusting a rookie in a must-win environment. But whatever the reason, it's outdated. And it's hurting the team. Because this isn't about one player anymore. It's about philosophy. You either believe in development or you don't. You either invest in young talent, or you recycle veterans. You either coach the future, or you stall the present until it collapses. Right now, the Browns are doing the latter, and everyone can see it. The offense has no consistency. The game plans are conservative. The quarterback decisions are reactive instead of proactive. And the fans? They're not fooled. They've seen this story before, and they know exactly how it ends. It ends with a wasted season. A quarterback controversy that drags into the offseason. A locker room that loses faith. And a coach who spends more time defending his decisions than actually winning games. And it's all avoidable. It starts with one move. Start Shedeur Sanders. Not in a gimmicky. Let's see what he's got package. Not in garbage time when the game's already lost. Start him. Build the offense around him. Give him a real shot. Let him take control. Let him make mistakes. Let him learn. Let him lead. Because if you don't, if you wait until the season is beyond saving, then you're not just setting Shedeur up to fail. You're setting everyone up to fail. And the worst part? You'll never even know what he could have been. You'll never know if he was the spark that changed the locker room energy. If he was the one who could have taken command and stabilized the offense. If he was the quarterback that finally gave Cleveland a reason to believe again. You'll just know you didn't try. And that's a legacy no coach wants to leave behind. So let's stop pretending this is complicated. It's not. It's a decision that should have been made weeks ago. But it can still be made now. Give Shedeur Sanders a starting job. Let him finish the season. Let him grow with this team. Let the fan base rally behind something real. Because the truth is, this isn't just about one quarterback. It's about everything the Browns say they want to be. And now it's time to prove it. And here's the part that stings the most. It didn't have to be like this. The Browns didn't need to be in this position. This wasn't inevitable. This wasn't a rebuild year. This wasn't a team scraping the bottom of the league with no direction or no pieces. This was a team with legitimate talent on defense, emerging playmakers on offense, and, believe it or not, a quarterback on the roster who actually could have brought it all together. But instead of recognizing that, instead of embracing Shedeur Sanders as the future and building around him, Kevin Stefanski opted for the one thing no fan base wants to hear: hesitation. And let's not pretend this is just about losing games. It's about how they're being lost. It's about the lack of urgency, the indecision, the refusal to adjust course when every sign, every stat, every shred of football logic is screaming for change. Week after week, the offense sputters. Third down conversions are abysmal. The red zone execution looks like a game of trial and error. And somehow, still, Stefanski continues to trot out quarterbacks who have already proven they're not taking this team anywhere meaningful. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is sidelined. Again, no consistent snaps, no rhythm, no chance to lead. He just stands there, on the sideline, in full gear, while everyone talks about him like he's a theory instead of a real option. A quarterback with clear upside, being treated like an experiment no one's quite ready to commit to. And that's what makes this whole thing feel less like a strategy and more like a stalled tactic. Because at this point, if Shedeur was going to be evaluated purely on performance, he would have been starting weeks ago. This isn't about what he can't do. It's about what the coaching staff won't allow him to show. You want to talk about development? You can't develop on the bench. You can't grow in practice alone. And you definitely can't prepare a guy for the future while repeatedly handing the job to quarterbacks who've done nothing but prove they're part of the problem. And look, no one's saying Sanders is the final product. No one's pretending he's going to walk out there and suddenly look like a 10-year vet. But development requires trust. It requires reps. It requires real opportunity, not lip service. And right now, that opportunity is being suffocated by Kevin Stefanski's unwillingness to take a risk. A coach who talks about progress but makes decisions rooted in fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of looking like he overcommit too early. Fear of losing games, which ironically he's already doing. The irony is brutal. By trying to play it safe, Stefanski is making everything worse. He's hurting Sanders' development. He's hurting the offense. He's dragging out a quarterback battle that should have been settled. And most of all, he's put himself in the worst possible position. The coach who had the guy and never used him. Because make no mistake, if Shedeur Sanders ends up being a legit starter in this league, people will remember that Cleveland had him first. They'll remember that the Browns had a shot to build around him. They'll remember the missed opportunity. And they'll remember the coach who blinked. And let's talk about the team, because it's not just Stefanski's reputation on the line. It's the players' careers, too. Guys busting their backs on defense. Skilled players try and make something out of broken plays. Veterans who know that time in this league is short. They're watching this unfold. They know when a quarterback can lead. They know when someone in the huddle has that presence. And when that guy keeps getting passed over, that's how trust in the coaching staff starts to erode. Because players want to win, period. And they can't win when leadership is afraid to lead. At some point, this isn't about football anymore. It's about accountability. Kevin Stefanski made his choice. He went with Gabriel. He brought in Flacco. He rotated in Zapp. And none of it worked. The offense is still inconsistent. The team still looks directionless. The plan is still unclear. So what now? Another week of pretending Shedeur isn't ready? Another week of deflecting in press conferences? Another week of we're evaluating all our options. While the most obvious one collects dust on the sideline, there's nothing left to evaluate. If you want to turn the page, if you want to prove that you care more about building something sustainable than protecting your own job, you give Sanders the start. Not as a gimmick, not as a last resort. As your guy, let him command the offense. Let him make mistakes. Let him grow. Let the team grow with him. Because what's the worst case scenario? He plays like a rookie? Guess what? So is Gabriel. So is everyone else you've started. The only difference is that Sanders might actually be worth it. And if he stumbles, at least you know. At least you tried. At least the fans can watch the season play out with something that resembles direction, rather than another loop of quarterback roulette. But if you keep delaying, if you keep leaning on familiarity, then you're not just avoiding a risk. You're becoming one. Stefanski still has time to fix this. Barely, but time. Give Shedeur Sanders a ball. Give him the trust. Give this team a shot at building around something instead of spinning its wheels every Sunday. Because the truth is, the clock isn't just ticking on the season. It's ticking on the belief. The belief in this staff, in this plan, in this team. Lose that, and you don't just lose games. You lose. If you're done watching this team play scared and ready to see Sanders finally take a shot, hit that like button. Share this with the fans who've been screaming the same thing week after week. Drop a comment. What's your verdict? Is Stefanski holding the Browns back, or is this just more Cleveland football as usual? And don't forget to subscribe, because if things keep going like this, you already know the meltdown is only getting started.